Hey guys, Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. So this is part 2 of the Music Theory for Metal series, and here in this video I'm going to talk about the scales that I'm going to be using 95% of the time, I'm going to say. Sure, you may come across some other scales here and there, some more exotic scales that are used in metal, but I want to focus on what we're going to be using 95% of the time, most of the time. And those two scales are going to be number 1, the diatonic scale, number 2, the pentatonic scale. I know that's a big shocker. If you've been following my videos for a while, you already kind of knew I was going to say that. Same thing applies to metal. Pretty much all genres of music, diatonic, pentatonic, those are the two main scales you're going to use. So if you watched the demo in the beginning, you may have noticed that I was also using the blues scale. Now, if you want to think of that as a third scale, that's fine. Me personally, I just think of the blues scale as the pentatonic scale with the blue note thrown in there. So you have your pentatonic scale, you have your 5 pentatonic positions. In each of the 5 pentatonic positions, you just kind of remember where the blue note fits in, and that's your blues scale. If you want to think of that as a completely separate scale, that's cool. Me, I'm just like pentatonic, blue note thrown in, done. Just an easier way to think about it. So those are going to be the two scales that you use. Let's talk about how to cover the fretboard with those two scales now. All right, so I'm using the same key that I was in part 1, which if you haven't watched part 1 yet, make sure to check that one out. In part 1, we were in the key of C sharp minor. Why did I choose the key of C sharp minor? I don't know. I just picked a chord. I just said, that's the key I want to play in. That chord that I just played was a C sharp power chord. Now, you remember from the previous video, part 1, power chords are representative of either major chords or minor chords. Knowing that this is metal, metal is usually played in the minor perspective of keys and not usually played in the major perspective of keys, which tells me that this C sharp power chord right here is probably going to be representative of a minor chord as opposed to a major chord. So this little power chord that I just played right here, C sharp, in my mind I'm like, okay, key is C sharp minor. That easy. All right, so with that said, and knowing that this is the key of C sharp minor, the objective is now to map out the two scales across the entire neck of the guitar. So the two scales, again, are the diatonic scale and the pentatonic scale. So the diatonic scale. This is going to be the C sharp natural minor scale. The C sharp natural minor scale is just another way of saying the diatonic scale for the key of C sharp minor. Two different ways to say the exact same thing. All you need to know is you're in the key of C sharp minor. The key of C sharp minor has 7 notes in it. It's time to map out those 7 notes across the entire neck of the guitar. All right, so you can map out the entire scale across the fretboard for any key using 7 patterns. You can do the same exact thing using 5 patterns. You can do the same exact thing using 3 patterns. For this video, I'm just going to use the 3 pattern approach. If you want to learn more about the 3 different approaches, I will link a video. It's called Patterns on the Fretboard. It shows you the 3 pattern, 5 pattern, and 7 pattern approach. Just to keep things simple, we're using the 3 pattern approach for this video. So the first thing you want to do is you want to identify where your C sharp note is found on the A string and on the low E string. That's how you're going to map out your patterns across the fretboard. So we have a C sharp note right here, 4th fret of the A string. You have one on the 9th fret of the low E string. You have one up here on the 16th fret of the A string. And then you have one all the way up here, but we're not going to worry about the highest C sharp. So we're just going to worry about those 3 instances of the C sharp. Here's going to be one of the patterns. You take your first finger and you put it right here on the note C sharp. The same pattern can also be found up here on the 16th fret because you also have a C sharp on the A string up here. So anytime you have your root note of the key that you're playing in, which in this case is the note C sharp, and it's located on the A string, you can simply take your index finger, put it on that note, and play this pattern. I refer to this as the A string home box. This is also pentatonic position 4, as you're going to see coming up in this video. It's just an arbitrary label. Call this whatever you want. I just call it the A string home box. That's what I like to call it. All right, so that's the first of the 3 patterns. The second of the 3 patterns is going to be identified by, again, taking your index finger and putting it on the note C sharp, but this time you're going to put it on the C sharp that's on the low E string. So right there, there's a C sharp on the 9th fret of the low E string, so this is how you find this pattern. All right, so that's the second pattern. Now, you could also find the same pattern up here if you had enough frets. So that's 2 of the 3 patterns. So the third of the 3 patterns, you're now going to take your pinky finger and you're going to put it on the note C sharp on the A string. So you've already identified where the note C sharp was on the A string. We have one right here, 4th fret. We have one right here, 16th fret. Put your pinky there, and that's how you're going to identify where the third pattern is. So put my pinky right here. Here's this pattern. So you also have another instance of the same pattern higher up on the fretboard for this key, because here's a C sharp right up here, 16th fret of the A string. So if I take my pinky and I put it on that C sharp right there, that same pattern is found up here an octave higher. So here's that. All right, so we've just mapped out the entire fretboard using the C sharp natural minor scale notes. There's 7 notes in the C sharp natural minor scale, and this is all of the locations for that particular scale. The same process works for any key. We're just using C sharp as our identifier for the locations of the patterns. If I was playing in the key of D minor, I would find the note D on the low E string and A string. If I was playing in the key of G minor, I would locate the note G on the E string and the A string. And you just identify your patterns based on the location of the key that you're playing in. All right, so we're playing in the key of C sharp minor. So I'm like, okay, here's a C sharp there. Locate some patterns there. There's a C sharp there. Locate pattern there. C sharp there. Locate some patterns there. All right, it's all about the key that you're playing in. That's how you go about identifying where on the fretboard these patterns are. So this is the C sharp natural minor scale, otherwise known as the diatonic scale for the key of C sharp minor. When you use the full 7-note scale, things sound more melodic. That's the best way I can describe it. So if I want to create like melodic sounding runs, whatever, just randomly noodling around in one of the patterns. If I wanted to play here, I could do the same melodic type of stuff here, you know? Just noodling around using all 7 notes, whatever leads, licks, phrases, solos, whatever. When you use the full 7-note scale, sounds melodic. All right, so that is the diatonic scale. Let's now look at the pentatonic scale. All right, so now we're going to map out the pentatonic scale for the key of C sharp minor. So the thing to understand is that the pentatonic scale is just 5 notes. Those 5 notes are 5 of the 7 total notes of the diatonic scale. So we've already looked at the full 7-note scale. We've already looked at the C sharp natural minor scale. Remove 2 notes and you're going to be left with the 5-note pentatonic scale for the key that we're playing in. Now, you may be thinking like, all right, well, if the pentatonic scale is 5 of the 7 total notes, what's the point of learning the pentatonic scale? Why not just learn the full 7-note scale? And you absolutely should. You definitely should learn the full 7-note diatonic scale. But when you eliminate those 2 notes and you stick to just the 5 pentatonic notes, the stuff that you play, the leads, the riffs, the licks, the fills, everything that you play is going to have a different sound to it. When you stick to just those 5 notes, it's going to result in a more rock type of sound, a more like bluesy metal type of sound. However you want to describe it, the thing to understand is it does sound different when you just use those 5 notes. That's why I recommend learning the pentatonic scale on its own in addition to the full 7-note diatonic scale. So let's go ahead and map out these. So you can start wherever you want. I always like to start by identifying my pentatonic position number 1 and then taking it from there. So your pentatonic position number 1, put your index finger on the note C sharp on the low E string. We already figured out that that is the 9th fret. Here's pentatonic position number 1. So once you've identified where your pentatonic position number 1 is for the key that you're playing in, you can then find pentatonic position number 2, 3, 4, and 5, all relative to the positioning of where number 1 is. So if number 1 is here, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 are going to be here. Or if number 1 is here, number 5, number 4, number 3, number 2, until you run out of frets. But it's all relative, you know. So once you find your first position, then you can very easily find any other position. So right here, this is our pentatonic position number 1. Pentatonic 2. pentatonic 3, pentatonic 4, pentatonic 5, and then back to pentatonic 1. If you don't have a 24 fret guitar, you're not going to be able to play pentatonic 1 again because you're going to run out of frets, but I happen to have a 24 fret guitar, so I'm able to squeeze in another instance of pentatonic position number 1 all the way up there. So anyway, here's pentatonic 1 again. And then going this way, you have pentatonic 5. Keep going that way, you have pentatonic 4. Keep going this way, you have pentatonic 3. And then you kind of run out of frets this way. You can't really get a full pentatonic position number 2 in that direction because you run out of frets. So yeah, so that's the entire pentatonic scale. And if you notice that when we mapped out the 3 patterns for the diatonic scale before, 2 of those patterns that I used were pentatonic position number 1 and pentatonic position number 4. Like pentatonic position number 1, I refer to this as the home box. So this is this pattern. And then pentatonic position number 4 right here, if you go ahead and add in those 2 missing notes, that's one of the 3 patterns that we looked at previously, you know. Or just playing the pentatonic notes. So pentatonic position number 4, pentatonic position number 1 are 2 of the 3 total patterns used to map out the full 7-note diatonic scale. All right, so now that we've mapped out the 5 pentatonic positions for this key, now it's just a matter of knowing where the blue note fits into each of the 5 pentatonic positions. And again, it doesn't matter what key you're playing in, the 5 pentatonic positions are going to have the same shape, the same pattern, regardless of the key that you're playing in. So you just have to learn this blue note location thing for each of the 5 patterns. You have to learn that one time, and then it'll apply to all 12 keys on the guitar. So for pentatonic position number 1, your blue note location is going to be right here. And then pentatonic position number 2, pentatonic position 3, pentatonic position 4, pentatonic position 5, and then back to pentatonic 1 if you have enough frets on your guitar. So that's all 5 pentatonic positions. So things are now going to be repeated in this direction, but just for the sake of completing this video, we're going to go ahead and fill in the rest of those patterns anyway. We already looked at pentatonic 1. All right, so you know where the blue note fits for pentatonic position 5. Keep going this way, you have pentatonic 4. You already know where the blue note fits in that position. Keep going this way, you have pentatonic 3. And then you run out of frets. All right, so now that we've mapped out the entire pentatonic scale with the addition of the blue note for the key that we're playing in, now you have a new scalar framework to play riffs in and fills and leads and solos and all that stuff. So if you use the full 7-note diatonic scale to play riffs and licks and leads and solos, then it's going to have a melodic sound to it. If you instead use the 5-note pentatonic scale with the addition of this one out-of-key blue note as your scalar framework to play your licks and riffs and solos and stuff, it's going to have a different sound. It's going to have a more rocking type of sound or more metal, you know? I love Pantera. Pantera is one of my favorite bands. R.I.P. Dimebag. Like, so many of those old Dimebag Pantera riffs are just like pure blues scale. 100% purely done using just the blues scale. So if you want a great example of lots and lots of metal that uses the blues scale, go listen to some older Pantera stuff. So let's just play around with this, you know, let's just play around with this scale and we'll just kind of see how it has a different type of sound to it. So I'll start here. I'll start around here in the 4th fret. This is pentatonic position number 4, so I'll start there. right, so all of the riffage that I was doing right there, I was just using the pentatonic / blues scale, and it had like a more, I don't know, Pantera-ish type of feel to it, you know. So, yeah, that's the difference. You really just have to kind of play around with this stuff, you know, play around with the full 7-note diatonic scale, get the feel for how that sounds melodic and stuff like that, and then play around with the pentatonic / blues scale, get the feel for that, and then get creative and combine it all together. That's like 95% of the scales that are used in metal. And as I said, there's like another 5% of some more exotic stuff out there, but probably want to focus on what you're going to be using most of the time, and that's the purpose of this video. I do want to talk about the harmonic minor scale. I do want to talk about diminished arpeggios and stuff like that, but that's going to be in later videos. But for this, 2 scales that you're going to be using, diatonic, pentatonic, done deal. Any questions, comments, feel free to ask. See you next time.